Well, good morning and welcome back to the Sixes and Sevens Round 8 wrap-up. And what a weekend of footy it was. There was more sin bins than tries. There was more howlers than no howlers. But here we are before we start talking some footy. How's my little mate over in France going?
I'm good, my mate. It's good to see you. I just want to let our viewers know that I have got a microphone here, Toddy. So it's been playing on my mind in preparation for our shows. I just want the footy nerds to know that there was a chance of getting this fixed today. But my little mate who's local over here has been on holidays. He's going to help me out. So hopefully before our footy fan questions next show, the microphone is fixed. It's worth bringing up, though, because I've listened back and it sounds a little bit echoey. So footy nerds, hang in there. It's going to be better footage over the next couple of weeks. But I'm good, brother. How are you? You like
I just
that?
love when you talk about technology and what's the word? You put it politely that you're not great with technology yet. That's what you're trying to say. It's not hard to plug a microphone in and press on.
I'm under strict instructions of what I was told to do. Turn the microphone on, plug it into the phone. I've done exactly what you've done. So there's obviously a little issue going on, and as I just said, footy nerds.
Are we blaming the
The
microphone or are we
audio will
blaming
be better in a
yourself?
couple of days.
You need to take some ownership here. Were you blaming the microphone or yourself?
We all have our strengths. We all have our weaknesses, and I haven't been educated enough on microphones. So give me, as I just said, give me a couple of days, and we'll be back with better audio. You're in a shit. Honestly, did you train this morning, or you just got straight out of bed?
I just got straight out of bed. Can you tell?
Yeah, you look awful. What's doing, mate?
How you going?
I'm good.
No, not much. Not much. Had a quiet weekend. Had no commentary over the weekend. So actually went down to Byron yesterday to watch the old boys play, which was they're not going real well at the moment. So it's quite sad to sit on the sideline and see how they're playing. Or not just how they're playing, but just how it's been. But yeah, it was a good reminder on the drive home that why I don't do it anymore, and my body feels good this morning not playing. But yeah, no, my weekend was good. Watched a lot of footy. Spent a bit of time with family. How about you? How's France treating you? What have you been up to?
France is good, mate. Just relaxing. I went to the game on Saturday. Catalans played. Who did they play? I'm so mind blank. Wakefield. They played Wakefield. Wakefield's improved. They've got a new owner. They've got a few good players. For those that don't follow Super League, Wakefield last few years have been pretty average. They've been sort of fighting for relegation nearly every year to stay in the top league. But this year they look a bit better, so they've improved. Got a couple of really good players. There's a guy I played with, Mike Meakin, who's the captain. Played at Catalans for a few years. I'm not sure if you played against him in your time over here, but geez, he would have been a good NRL player. He just, I think he got a few opportunities to go over it a few years ago, but geez, he's a good footballer. Lock, front rower. He's captain of Wakefield, old teammate, but Catalans are going good. Luke Keary played quite well. Remus Smith, the old Melbourne player, played over there great for the Storm, and his old man Tyrone Smith is a player manager and played a lot of first grade back in the day. Scored the try to win the game in extra time, Toddy. So there's a bit of insight on the Super League. But the games of footy on the weekend, geez, it was a good round of footy. What I'm loving about the game, Toddy, is the unpredictability. I'm loving the unpredictability of the competition, and Roosters, Cowboys cruising along nicely. Galvin back for the Tigers. What a win that was.
What do you put it down to, the footy? Like, it's not. This was one of our words of the week a few weeks ago. Inconsistency. Is it inconsistency, or is it just the makeup of our competition now? Like, because we've seen on Thursday night, which we'll touch on first up, but the Bulldogs flying high. Everyone's question marks about the Broncos. Broncos come out and give them an absolute arse whooping. And then you look at the Dolphins game, for instance. At halftime, Dolphins are winning 28-10, or with 25 minutes to go, 28-10. Is it inconsistency, or is it the makeup of footy and the way the game is being pushed to where it's going to be. Like we talk about the 6 against, the ruck infringements, penalties, the high shots, the sin bins. So the cautious of how you actually go into tackles. Is this a knock-on effect of what we're looking at? We've got another 50-point scoreline over the weekend. We've got a 40-point scoreline over the weekend. Is this where the game's going because that's how the game's been pushed, or is it inconsistency?
No, I don't think the performances. For example, use the Dogs as an example. I think, what are they? They haven't lost a game yet all year, if I'm correct. I don't think they've lost a game.
They got beat the other night.
This is what I'm saying. This is what I was getting to. So
Yeah,
I'm saying
the
first game they lose on the weekend, up till against the Broncos on the weekend. They've been playing great. You can't be up every week as a football team. If you go on and you look at the best teams in the history of the game that win competitions back to back, there's periods that you just don't have your greatest performances during the regular season. So I don't think it goes down to inconsistency as such. For example, for that win, I think some of the other games that were played on the weekend were really good games of footy from both sides. You go to the Canberra Dolphins game. I thought Dolphins played really good. So, are you saying they had a form slump, or are you just saying that Canberra played better? I think Canberra were the better team over the 80 minutes, but Dolphins still played really well. So that's the thing I'm liking about it. We say unpredictability and inconsistency, but I feel like the unpredictability is coming off a more balanced talent pool across the competition now, which I think is a positive, because I think when they brought the salary cap in, there was talk for a long time about having this. This was the dream for the NRL, wasn't it? To have a well balanced competition that every side's capable of winning each week. And I think I like the style of footy at the moment. As I said, I don't think the Dogs dropping a game is off inconsistency. It's just off a side turning up and playing better, which is what sport's about. And then, as I just said, Canberra game, Dolphins game. Roosters, on the other hand, as well. Roosters haven't been in great form. They find something against a form team in the Dragons, and they get a huge win at home. Footy just is, as we speak about all the time, footy's about attitude and competing. And if you do that in the NRL, you win games. And even the best of teams, when they have that little bit of a drop in that area, they fall short. So it's good to watch. I love where the game's at the moment. I mean, it's quick, it's fast. The unpredictability is good to watch. I'm sure it is for the fans as well.
I'm with you there. I'm loving where the game's at too, because while I was in Byron yesterday, I was also watching my phone. But I was, as I'm a Raiders fan, as we always talk about, but I'm sitting there at 28-10. At the 49th minute, Zach Hoskins scores, and then all of a sudden, it becomes 40-28. Like, there's the unpredictability of what's going to go on. So is that what we're trying to say? Is that you have to muster and hold something for 80 minutes? Because the Dolphins' first half was their best performance this year, the way they played. But then in the second half, polar opposites. Because was that the Raiders that they got all the possession? Was it Raiders played better? They found something at half time. So is this what we're going to see? Is that for a 40-minute first half and then the second half, you've got to be on the whole game, which what I'm trying to get at. But how can you be on the whole game when we've got so much unpredictability with the refs, the high shots, the 6 agains, the penalties, the momentum shifts in games are so crazy. And I'll talk about it with the Penrith Manly game the other night, watching it, and then all of a sudden the ref stops the game when Manly are on the tack. They pull back a tackle 4 tackles earlier from Siwa Takiaho, a high shot, contact to the head, 10 in the bin. All of a sudden, Manly was pressuring the Penrith line. They go up the field 30 metres, kick for touch, and then all of a sudden, Penrith are on the attack. It's so crazy.
The sin bins is, you just brought up a great point. We're obviously going to go into that topic, but the sin bins is ruined the whole weekend of footy. I was talking more from performances in the talent pool, that the unpredictability and consistency is spread out now. But as far as the power when it's in the refs' hands and their decisions that are costing, like you just said, momentum swings and putting teams in a hole during games, it's disgraceful. It's so bad to watch. It blew my mind, really, just watching You thought it was going to fade away as the sort of games went on over the weekend. Yeah,
I
you
don't
think,
think this one can fade away.
yeah, but I was waiting
I
for
don't
it to
think.
fade away after sort of the first couple of games of the round, and then I'm there going, and it just kept happening. So there's obviously been a push. It was like we spoke about it before, Toddy. Like every year they come in with a motive. Like there was that play the ball rule where you had to play the ball with your foot. They play heaps of penalties first couple of weeks, and then it's not heard of again after sort of round 10 into the back end of the year. But this one, is it going to go away or it's not good?
So the thing is with the play the ball one, as fans watching the game live, we can't see the play the ball. Like we can't, or not even live, watching it on TV, you don't notice it because one, you're not going to scan the whole time someone puts their foot on the ball. But the high contact and the hit to the head, it's going to be, it happens all the time and it's replayed all the time. So anytime there's a big hit or anytime someone hits even the players, but it falls back to the players a little bit too, because anytime someone gets hit just around the chin a little bit, they're looking up at the ref going, come on, where's our penalty?
You know the worst ones though. The worst. Sorry, Toddy. The worst ones were the ones. There was Satili's one with it was saying he had no wraparound, so
you can't wrap there.
You can't wrap, but it was things that you see 50 like over the past 5 years. I've seen those tackles 15 times a game. That type of tackle where there's a bump off, or there was other ones there. There was the Sorensen one, I think it was. There were half a shoulder charge. Like, what's he meant to do there? Like he's literally the contact with the head was very minimal, and there was just some of them were just ridiculous. But as you said, there's obviously been a meeting with the NRL and the refs. They've had a conversation about it. They had a hyper focus on this area, and honestly, it ruined the whole game of footy.
Yeah, the inconsistency, the word was that time. The inconsistency of what happens to the player when they do the high shot. Like some on the weekend, probably still not warranted to a 10 in the bin, but then some on the weekend that was got 10 in the bin, and then something similar happens in the next tackle. It's like, oh, that's just on report, this one.
Yeah.
Like the level of punishment for each player is different, is how the game's going, because if it happens all the time and it continues to stay on the same path, we could see 10 on 10.
Yeah. And
at some point, like, how's this going to play? Okay, we've got Origin in a few weeks' time. How's this going to play out in Origin? Does this stay the same?
Well, over history, the bigger games like Origins, they normally let it go, don't they? But I mean, as you just said, we saw Suwali's valid send off last year with that tackle, and it ruined the game. It ruined the whole Origin spectacle. So if they go down this line for stuff that's not even as dramatic, just for little, like we just said, like I said, someone not wrapping the ball up in an Origin game over the history of Origin, how many tackles is that? How many tackles similar to this Satili one happened during a game of 80 minutes in an Origin?
Well, the first kickoff 50, for every game, someone 50. Will get 10 in the bin from the first kickoff.
They can't be doing that. But yeah,
before we tap into the round 8 wrapper, I want to talk on, obviously, we've got the PNG, got the tick of approval earlier in the year, then over the weekend, the North Sydney, Perth Bears, Western Bears, whatever the name will be, has pretty much steamed enough momentum that they've got the tick of approval. They're saying Brad Arthur's already the coach at the Perth team. My question to you, Mitch, is there enough talent in the NRL and lower grades to sustain having 2 more teams with if you look at the ladder now, and the ladder doesn't replicate too much, but there's still, you've got the Panthers, the Eels, the Knights, the Titans, only all registered 2 wins from the start of the season. And I'm going to single out Newcastle and the Titans at the moment, that they're well off a win. They're well away from a win at the moment. So is there enough talent pool in our competition to have 2 more teams come in?
No, I don't think there is. Just to be straight up and answer directly, I don't think there is. As you just said then, we spoke about the inconsistency in the competition from sort of, as you just said, probably from 13 teams upwards. They're in the fight each week. As we're seeing that you just spoke about Titans, there's a few sides there at the bottom of the ladder that don't even look like winning at the moment, and you go and spread that out to 2 more sides. I don't know where the players are going to come from. yeah, you might be able to field a starting side, but as we know, the amount of players that you go through in a competition now that's getting harder and harder every year. I just think I just think the only way forward, my answer to your question is my only way forward is to really invest in Super League. Invest in the Super League. You're a good one to talk about because I've been passionate about this for a while. Obviously with your coaching at Byron and the Queensland competition up there. I know Central Coast has got a good A grade competition, but the amount of good players that are playing in these type of grades, it might be say a 28 or 33-year-old halfback, for example, or any position that have sort of got pushed out of an NRL system because they front load these younger kids now, right? And they're all on bigger contracts. So these guys get to sort of reserve grade that might be on near fuck all money, getting no pay. So they have to balance a job on a construction site plus come into training. So they just choose to go and play local footy for Byron, or they go and play for Central Coast. Jimmy Maloney's still playing up there, for an example. But there's guys up there that are really quality players that would do a good job that get pushed to the wayside. So I think the only option is to go in and buy into the Super League, invest. I don't know how the pathways would look with that, but send guys that are playing for Byron and the Central Coast, just for an example, or country group sides out in the country, send them overseas on bigger contracts, make the Super League a better competition because you're getting good players that are still going to add value, and then get the best of the Europe competition coming through the juniors in Australia. That's my thoughts.
But if you do that, if you get the best of the UK and then not the best of Australia and merge them together, all of a sudden teams are going to start picking these guys from the UK. I'm all for the NRL.
What do you mean they're going to start?
Well, you're just saying like if the NRL has a share of the Super League, right? They're going to start picking players from the Super League to come to Australia. If there's an easy way to do it, and you spoke about
over the Aussies.
Yeah, over the Aussies, over the not so great Aussie players. So the ones that go over there, like I'm all for the NRL buying the game because it's growing the game, buying the Super League because it's growing the game. But they've still obviously got the girls waiting in the wings. They've got only a top 30 contracted players, so there's them players that are on a minimum wage, and then the rest behind. There's a big gap from under 20s through to Queensland Cup, I believe, or New South Wales Cup for these players. The prime example you spoke about, there's a guy in Byron, I'm not going to mention his name, that he's been playing Queensland Cup for a team. He's been starting. They're a feeder club to one of the NRL teams. A player from the NRL squad has coming back to his team in Queensland Cup. He's still starting over him, but he's getting $500 a game. Where in Byron he gets whatever he's getting, but it's more than the 500. So he's not getting much work where he's at in Queensland. So he's decided to go back and play for Byron, and he's going to try and go over and play in the French competition at the end of the year. But what I'm trying to say there is that you've got guys that work all day, then go out and play Queensland Cup or New South Wales Cup, which is fine because that's what they want to do. But if you can, the money that they're going to invest in the Super League, you can invest into the lower competitions to make them semi-professional, not so much full-time, but invest a little bit more money into these players. Then you'll keep them in the game. You'll keep them in New South Wales Cup. You'll keep them in Queensland Cup. They're not going back to flood the competitions in the Gold Coast, the Northern Rivers, the Newcastle competition, the Wollongong, which is good for our game too because, for instance, on the weekend, Corey Norman, Kevin Proctor, Jared Wallace are all playing for Currumbin. But they're retired players, but that's good for our game. But then there's some players in that team that are on the verge of getting to that next position or coming out of school footy, and then all of a sudden they've got to go play against men. Like it's a big step in between, I think.
So how's that look? So you're talking about they've got the top 30 squad. So you said if they're not going to invest in Super League, which I pushed for, to get more of a bigger pool, you're saying invest more in what we've already got. Well, how does that look for you? How do they invest more money? How do those guys get paid more within the top 30? Like,
well, it's not so much the top. It's not the top 30 players that need to get invested more money in. It's the blokes it's behind the top 30.
So you're gonna have your top 30 as a salary cap, and then you're gonna have another bulk of money that invests in these second tier guys that are sort of looked at as come under the pool of potential NRL players still, even if they're in their 30s. Is that what it?
Yeah, well, not so much in their 30s. Like, they've got to have a talented, obviously, if they're 30, yes, but it's more the younger guys, the ones that are finishing New South Wales, Queensland, like finishing school, finishing under 20s competition. Like, it's actually given them a chance to actually develop. Like, we speak about Cody Walker so much. He took so much time to develop in Queensland Cup, but there's blokes not bothering developing in Queensland Cup or New South Wales Cup because they're not getting any money. And I know the game's not for money, but if you can get an extra $600 on top of your salary when you're working, playing for a Byron or a Currumbin or a Western Wollongong like that, you're not going to play New South Wales Cup of Queensland. They're losing so many talented players that if you give them time and develop in a semi-full-time system, they could handle NRL week in, week out. But at the moment, we're either going from our top 30 or then the next kid's coming through.
Yeah. I totally agree. I just how that would look is interesting. Like how they would structure all that. I still think they can do both. The amount of money that they must have there, why can't they do exactly what you're talking about which I totally agree. Invest more in the ones that are falling away, that are going to play park footy because they're getting paid more, and put some funding into that pool, and then also invest into Super League. I think that's really going to be the next step for the NRL because you're not only becoming worldwide, genuinely, but you're also developing. You're putting more money over the Super League and the French competition. You're investing and developing them with quality coaching, quality resources. And then I'm a big advocate about what you said. Like, who was the Broncos half? Gabe might remember that played for the Broncos. You talk about old guys. He played with Darren Lockyer for the 2006 grand final. And he was like 32. He won the comp at the Broncos. Gabe?
Is it Neville?
Shane Perry.
Shane Perry.
Yeah, like there's so many Shane Perrys around, and you're probably the best person to ask because you've been at grassroots and you've been playing in that A grade local competition coaching, and you're better aware of that to ask than me. But like, there's so many good quality players around, and not only that, the system we came through when there was built on senior players and older heads. There's guys that have got just as much footy now as the top players in NRL. That might not have had the speed or the ability, but they could be solid first grades. Frawley's another one who's just come to mind for me. He was a guy that was around the systems for a bit, older half at Canberra, went to the Dogs for a bit. Like, good player, probably make a good coach, good footy head. But those older heads are great for the group. And the way the game is now, you talk about expansion. These younger boys, they need older heads around them at training. They need older heads in video sessions.
What was it like back in the day? There was like a top 40 when we first come in. I remember when I first in Canberra, there was more than 30 in our top squad. And then there was always 5 kids or 5 players from the younger ages, or from like under 20s right through to, there was 5 players that would train full time that would get a taste of it. So they'd be on, obviously, that minimum wage. But it's a debate we could talk about for a long time. But also, I believe where the game's at, as we both agreed before. We're loving where the game's at. Thursday night, Broncos 42 over the Bulldogs 18. Adam Reynolds just put on an absolute masterclass from the start of the game to the finish of the game. His kicking was unbelievable. But they can start calling me Mystic Mac, because we spoke about this last week about if I was a coach playing against the Bulldogs.
Sir Todd Carney.
The Sir Donald of rugby league, talking about a game plan to actually beat the Bulldogs. And I'm not sure if the Broncos staff were listening, but they done it to a T. They done it to a T.
So can you explain to the viewers again, Toddy, those that didn't hear or need a reminder? Can you go into detail about what your game plan was and actually what you saw live while they were playing?
Oh, well, we speak about the Bulldogs a lot, about how they make you work hard in attack. They hunt from the inside. Their line speed is the best in the competition. They work with their backside of inside and out. But also what that creates is when you do that for any half playing against them, your trigger is to play on the out because you feel so much pressure on the inside. So if you play early at the back and then drop blokes under, all of a sudden these bigger bodies that are going to come back through the middle. I spoke about the Broncos outside backs in Simasaki and Stags, but they went with Xavier Wilson again in the back row. They were dropping him under. But what it does, it stops the actual defence from coming up and pushing you out because you're going to come back through them. Reed Money got stood up. He's a guy that hunts from the inside, then will push you out. So that once they're sort of done enough on the inside, they hunt on the outside to put all the pressure on the attack that's going away from them. But when you got bodies coming back through them, and all of a sudden you got to stop and you got to hold and be worried about, are they going to continue to do this? So then all that pressure on the inside stops, and then you see later in the game Broncos start screwing on the outside because all their pressure that was coming from the inside has to stop because there's blokes dropping under. The Warriors done it was great again on the weekend, doing the same thing again, dropping blokes under because it stops the defence. Like you have to change the way you defend if you've got bodies coming back in through the middle. And on the weekend, the Broncos just done it perfectly, and it got the jump on the Bulldogs because I don't know. As you spoke about, Bulldogs weren't as good as they have been, but the Broncos also isolated them in attack and defence to stop them from being as good as they have because they actually went against their model.
And like you just said, all the stuff you're saying, not only does it is it a better way to attack, you're also tiring out the middles when you're completing high. And then off the back of that, a great kicking game. As you said, Adam Reynolds' kicking game. A good or an average set without a good kicks is worthless, isn't it? And then when you add a high-end quality set with a kicking game like Adam Reynolds, geez, straight away they go from a lingering around the 8 to a premiership winning team again, don't they?
Oh, 100%. And I think that changes with the whole intent, the way the Broncos played. Obviously, Reece Walsh is out. Cobbo is a predominantly winger, so he's got that hard edge carry out of his own end, but like he was starting their sets by catching the ball and flying back into them, and then that creates a quick play the ball straight away. I'm not saying Walshy doesn't do that, but Selwyn's Cobbo's play the ball is probably a lot quicker than Walshy's coming from the back end because he's finding a body and getting up, and it starts the set for the Broncos. But the Broncos had a lot of ball in their own end, own red zone, which helped them. But there's just the importance of their players. And also another thing, this is for young kids, that if you use the drop play earlier in games, it actually gets halves in the games because when you're always playing out the back or you're always playing early to someone and not dropping blokes under, you're actually chasing the game because the ball gets away from you. So then all of a sudden you're passing from the 4 and then all of a sudden the ball ends up over the 6. And as a half, you've got to run all the way to the 6 to get the ball. But if you drop blokes under, the ball stays right where you want it. So then you've got a vision of what you've got in front of you because the ball's coming back to where the play started or close to. So then you only got to scan this part of around the ruck from A, B, and C, where usually you'd have to run to the other side to work out what's going to happen from the next part if you're going shift for shift. But you're in control when you're playing drop plays.
Good insight. You loved the drop play, didn't you, Toddy?
Well, I love the drop play because it brought me into the game, but it also isolated defenders because I know if I'd done a drop play, what I spoke about is it actually makes the defensive line square up because there's a body coming back through and it makes them work on the inside. And when they're retreating back to the line, they're not retreating back in a square view because one will come from the open side because you've actually made a dent in their defensive line because there's a bloke coming back through finding his front more so because he's got the defence off feet.
Well, you're testing the opposite defence if they're going to be lazy too, aren't you? Like the negative side that's not expecting the defenders to come back at them. You know, when they choose to take a shortcut, you can catch them out. You use Billy Smith's example in the Roosters game when he threw that bit of a wayward pass. He came off a cross play, as you just said, from the left, skipped across, throws a ball. Marky Mark scores in the right corner. So. Yeah, you're testing the whole field with genuine cross plays. I love those cross plays with your centers, big centers. Justin Hodges used to do it in Origin for Queensland. He was one of the best at it. But Joey Manu was starting to play that type of style for the Roosters there for a while. But yeah, it's a great style of footy. I think the only risk is I know when we played with Brian Smith and Smithy was big on very much fixating on, okay, this week, boys, we're doing cross plays. But as you said,
you can't fixate on that. You can't fixate and just do it all the time because it's been spoken about. And the Broncos done this well because they went away from it in the second half and started scoring on the outside by playing out the back because the defense has to stop it to do something different to what they're not doing because when they were coming back through the middle, they'll make an inroad scoring tries. So then they have to do. Then once that defense holds up and inside pressure is not as furious as it usually is from the Bulldogs, they got the comfortable ability to play at the back now because they're not getting so much pressure on the inside. So you have to change it up. You can't just go cross for cross and think you're going to have an easy run to the try line because they'll start to work it out.
One of the Dogs. You say you just brought something up before the show. I want you to go into it. You said that this was a bit of the pop of the balloon for the Dogs. Do you think this is because the Broncos have exposed an area to attack the Bulldogs?
No, I don't think it's. I think teams will use it. I definitely think teams will look at the first 25, 30 minutes of the game the other night and have a look what the Broncos done. But also the Broncos had a point to prove of what they dished up in the week before against the Warriors. So whoever was playing the Broncos the other night was up for it. They had to be on, and I don't believe the Bulldogs are on. Is their bubble burst? There could be a question mark. They're going to be without a few key players this weekend through suspension. Although they've got Titans at Magic Round this weekend, so it's a big occasion. But I feel there's a DNA to show how you can actually come up against the Bulldogs, but it's easier said than done. I think it brings them back to level playing field, but because before the game on Thursday night, I was sitting there going, the Bulldogs and the Melbourne Storm were my out and out teams that can win. I had before that, I had the Broncos, I had the Panthers, I had Manly at one point, but now I'm talking about from after this weekend's footy, I'm talking about the Bulldogs, the Broncos, the Raiders, the Warriors. They're teams that can win a competition now. And I didn't think I'd be saying it from the start here, from the first game in Vegas, that the Warriors would be a threat. But the way they're tracking along, they're going to play finals footy.
The Warriors' best start, I read something up before the show, is the Warriors' best start. 2018, they had a better start to the year, but other than that, in the history of their club, this is the best start they've had since 2018. Where they must have maybe, if 2018 was better, they obviously won every game for the first 6 weeks. But yeah, what a start from the Warriors. It's sort of funny side. We'll get to them in a second, but they're going.
Let's jump straight into the Warriors game. We can jump straight into it. We don't have to go off schedule here. We can jump straight in the Warriors game. The second game on Friday night, Anzac Day, Warriors 26 over the Newcastle Knights 12. And this is a game I watched closely. One, because I was hoping the Knights would find something, but they didn't find anything. The Warriors were, again, just showed their craft and what they've worked on. Some young, exciting outside backs and edge back rowers and blokes coming through the middle. But yeah, for me, the Warriors, again, Metcalf was unbelievable. Chance Nickel-Klokstad was back from, made a lot of difference, while I rated Tane Tuapiki the week before on his performance, but it just shows the importance of Chance bringing the ball back. He starts their set so well.
Yeah, a few disallowed tries from the Warriors. I thought the Knights were just, like you said, weren't even in this game. Once again, I think they just ended up getting 12 points, but it averaged out to pretty similar to their 10-point disgraceful start to the year, without being too harsh. You know, that if it wasn't for that goal, they've averaged roughly 2 tries a game. It's a real worry for them. I thought Gagai showed some positive things for the Knights. But other than that, there wasn't too much light. I thought Sharp and KP had some decent attacking footy when they had an opportunity. But yeah, the Warriors were too good. As you said, Chance at the back, Metcalf, Wade Egan played great. I like what they're doing with the ball. I still think they got a lot of improvement in attack, even though they've been winning. They don't look, obviously with losing Johnson last year, that flamboyance and that sort of footy IQ in big games. I don't feel like they look their layers to their attack hasn't sort of reached its peak yet, but they're doing the dirty things better than they were doing last year, even when Johnson was playing. So they've stripped it right back, and they're winning off desire and teamwork. But yeah, I thought, 16-0 early with a few tries missed that were disallowed, and Knights just weren't in the fight at all. Jacko Ford, like you said, 2 tries. He was popping up everywhere, so congratulations to him. And yeah, it's a lonely place in Newcastle at the moment, Toddy.
What is it at Newcastle? Like, we won't dive too much into it because we spoke a little bit last week. Where's the answers come from? Everyone's echoing it. Like, Jackson Hastings is sitting in New South Wales Cup. When he's had performances before, they've been better. Is it time to move KP to 7? Put Fletcher Sharp to fullback?
Nah, you can't put KP to 7. I don't know, but I still think as well. Jackson Hastings has got some he gets some mixed opinions about him, Jacko, and he probably doesn't help himself. He's a good kid, Jacko, but I know you're a big fan of Jacko, and you sort of spoke about him as a player. You think he does a good job, and I
believe he does a good job. But because what you get with Jackson Hastings, you get someone that's going to go out and work his backside off. Doesn't matter if he's on the rocks there at Newcastle. If he gets an opportunity, he would go out there and work his backside off. Because at the moment, it's not working.
I think Jackson needs to be pushed back in there. I think at the moment, as you just said, KP to half, no chance. Fullback for me, but there's enough there with the Knights. That's the thing. There's got to be a deeper issue. Like, okay, Jackson doesn't get along with the boys, just from what I'm reading. For me, that just needs to get nipped in the butt. But there's got to be some deeper issue. When creativity is not getting found within a team and you've got a good roster, like, there's still good enough players there to be averaging way more than 10 points a game. I don't know if the focus or the attitude's too fearful. Sometimes lack of creativity can come from a fear of making mistakes within teams. So I don't know if that's it's become a cultural thing. I don't know. It's just, there's got to be more to the issues of not being able to score points, because the roster's good. I read something the other day that the Knights aren't getting the go for. They have had a few players out with injuries, but I haven't watched games and think that they're not creating much momentum. Have you noticed that, Toddy?
No, I find it very bizarre. I was listening to, and it's the first I heard it over the weekend, that players are off Jackson, and they're the reason why that he won't be getting picked, because they've echoed to the coach that they don't want him in their team. But if that's the case, the players are picking the team, and Adam O'Brien will fall on the sword, because that's where it will end up. It won't be the players that leave first. It'll be the competition's results driven. And the pressure is going to heap more and more. We've got a big weekend here at Magic Round coming up for round 9. They play against South. Hopefully big stage, big players, Kalen and that step up. But they're coming up against the South team, the similar team, big stage, big players. So it's just the noise there is going to get worse and worse, I believe, until something cracks.
Not to be negative about the Dylan Brown signing again, though, but to sign that much of investment in, you talk about, I read something the other day, that's why I went into detail about it, with the lack of go forward, the blaming the attack down to a lack of go forward at the moment. Yeah, they have a few middles out, but going and signing a Dylan Brown and not having as much room in your salary cap to go and buy middles, it just makes the whole situation even more bizarre, but we will see.
We'll see. If you are a scout or actually a club and looking for a marquee signing, as we spoke about, PNG coming into the competition soon, the Perth team coming into the competition, we'll leave the PNG one aside, but let's speak about Perth. Who would be your marquee signing?
What year are they coming in? 2027
or 8, I think it is.
Yeah, because it obviously plays its part. Obviously, some of the older players now in the competition, marquee players, will be getting on. Your Munsters and that are probably getting to their last couple of days. Nathan's obviously one that, the obvious is Nathan, Jerome Hughes. I could see Jerome Hughes taking a leap of faith, something like that. He's been at Melbourne Storm for a long time. If there was a really handy paycheck and he could experience a different challenge, I can't see Nathan leaving Penrith. I think if Nathan left, the only reason he'd leave just off my own instincts, you'd think it would probably be something to do with a French rugby or a Japanese rugby or something like that. I reckon Jerome Hughes would be great. Jerome Hughes, sign Jerome as an older guy, be closer to his back end of his career, but he'd be someone that you could bring as that senior half that would still be in great form. But then there's obviously the obvious ones, your Kalins. Galvin's the other one. You know, if he signs a 3-year deal at whatever club he decides to go to, and you get the young kid off contract ready to go, coming into his mid-20s, Perth, marquee, build a club around him. We'll get to him later, but geez, he was impressive again with all the pressure got him.
I would go try and get Katoa because by that time I reckon he'd be more. Obviously, he'd be a marquee. He's a marquee at 21 now. He's doing great things at the Dolphins. I'd go with someone like Katoa, but then I'd be raising the question to someone like Craig Bellamy or Wayne Bennett. I know Wayne will be on well on by then, but it'll be around that time when he's finishing up at the South, and obviously Craig's just doing year to year. So I'd be throwing my sort of noises that way to them too to tempt an idea. Obviously, they're talking Brad Arthur, but there's them two guys come to mind. The next game was our first game on Anzac Day, a big clash that you've been a part of many a times. Actually, had the joys of sitting on the couch watching the best 5 Anzac Day games, and my great mate knocked a field goal over 2018, I think it was. 17. So we'll go Roosters 46 over the Dragons 18. And it's a long week in rugby league and so much can change. And I brought this up last week about Cole Flanagan's comments about having a dig at people for bagging their halves. And then when I actually mentioned when you say things like that, you have to continue to back it up. And I thought his performance, their whole team performance over the weekend wasn't great. But the Roosters, James Tedesco, Sandon Smith, were outstanding for the club on the weekend. What did you make of this one?
Yeah, I think the Roosters were the Roosters of old. And saying that, Roosters of the last couple of years when they play at home, they ambush sides from the get go when they're at their best, big, powerful, strong, and that's exactly what they looked like. The two Smiths, Billy Smith. I just want to go into Billy Smith before we get into Sandon and all the rest of the standouts. But I just want to give Billy Smith a shout out. He's been great since he's come back. He's obviously had huge injury problems through his short career. When he hit the scene, he was a super player. But I think he's a great footballer. Those fans that have been watching him closely, he's the prototype of a good centre. Big, tall, athletic. He can claw across field and break tackles. He can beat you on the outside. He's a really, really good defender. So, Billy Smith, congratulations on your return. You've been awesome, mate. Hopefully you get some good luck with injuries. But Sandon Smith stole the day. What a player he was on the day. He was in everything. He showed some promise this year, but it's been a tough year for him. So I was really happy to see him do well. Obviously, we know what it's like coming in as a young half, dealing with the pressure and expectation, especially when you're in a side that's hasn't got much stability and there's a lot of players in and out, younger players. So it's great to see him. Hopefully that can sort of springboard him into some good form. But yeah, him and Teddy were too good. I thought Docker Clay was good out of dummy half as well. He obviously set that try up for Blake Steep. Another one worth a mention, Blake Steep, who's a standout young guy as well. But yeah, it all stuck for the Roosters, didn't it? From start to finish. And yeah, Sandon Smith was too good. You just sort of wonder where that's been for the Roosters over the last few weeks. That obviously the occasion and playing at home and all the emotion got them up, but they need to somehow bottle that start, bottle that physicality and run with it the next few weeks.
I'll raise the question. Obviously, they'll get Sam Walker back and Brendan Smith over in the coming weeks. If they can muster some more wins up, do we see Roosters playing finals football? And then obviously, who partners the halves with Sam Walker coming back in? Is it Hugo or is it Sandon? Does Brendan Smith walk straight back in the team? You spoke about Zach Docker Clay. Connor Watson's doing an unbelievable job out of 9, which he'll probably earn his Origin jumper again. But another question I'll raise, obviously, with the Roosters, there's still speculation where Cherry Evans goes. Do they hold off on that signing, or if the signing's done already, what's the ramifications of that? Do they lose a Sandon Smith, a Hugo? Obviously not Sam, because if he was to come, he'd partner Sam in halves. Does that put pressure on them to retain a bloke like Hugo and Sandon?
No, honestly, it's funny when we talk about the unpredictability of the game. You know, the Roosters, besides the win on the weekend, they've been at the bottom of the ladder. So it's funny how much, I said last week in one of the shows that Jim Dimmick gave me advice one time that 1 week in rugby league's a long time. It just goes to show, here we are talking about, do they sign Cherry Evans? Does Hugo stay in? Does Sam Walker come back and get his spot? 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago,
the innuendo of innuendo.
Well, 3-4 weeks ago, we were talking about the Roosters being in an absolute hole, and I can't get too excited just yet. Even though we're both ex-players there, I can't get too excited off the back of one win. They've still got to put some good form together over the next few weeks because they've been quite underwhelming to start the year. But yeah, I think from where they're at and the rebuild of players that they've got, they needed something like this. They needed their best young players to feel what it feels like to dominate a game. And hopefully that gives them that little bit of a confidence, a bit of a spring in their step. But to go back to your question about Cherry Evans, if Cherry Evans is available, where their roster is, I'd still be going for Cherry.
Our last game on Friday night was the Melbourne Storm 24 over the Bunnies 16. What did you think of this one? How did it play out for you?
South surprised me. I thought it was going to be an ambush. I spoke about that, I think, before the game. I thought Melbourne were just going to put a cricket score on South. South's record in Melbourne is 20-0. 20 wins to 0. Melbourne Storm have beat South Sydney. So they're up against a tidal wave of history of winning, and they fell short again. It's a pretty unbelievable record, really. Like, it makes you laugh, doesn't it? And the only probably coach that could get you up and come up with the right words would be Wayne Bennett, wouldn't he? Like, if you've gone in and you're 20-0 and you're just saying this is our time, there's got to be some self-doubt there as a player, as a playing group. But, yeah, I'm sure Wayne Bennett would be the only one that would probably come up with the right words. But Melbourne, for me, were good. I think, as I said, it was close at half time. Jack White and 3 tries was the shining light for South Sydney. But Melbourne, typical Melbourne.
They stayed in it, South.
South were good. Yeah, they surprised me. I thought they were going to get ambushed.
Yeah, I thought it was the same, and I was just waiting for it. I was sitting there waiting for South Melbourne to take off, but then I was also in the background sitting there waiting for South to snatch a win. It shows the importance, and I know they had a loss last weekend. They were way better on the weekend. Obviously, their big guns stepped up their spine, Munster, Hughes, and Pappenhausen. But it shows how much they miss Harry Grant, I reckon. How much he makes the team tick through the middle. It's not so much their play; it's more so what goes on around him, rolling the rock, knowing when to tempo, slow the game up, speed the game up for his halves. But they showed enough for me again, the Storm, that they're definitely a threat, and when he comes back, he'll be more of a threat. But some good signs for South. I don't think the experiment with Jai Gray worked at 6. But obviously when it comes injuries, it's an interesting one. Does we reckon Wayne's just not a fan of Dodd, or he's letting him sort of buy his time?
We can't put words in his mouth, but by reading between the lines, I think I can't imagine him being a huge fan. Only going off the back of instability. It sounds harsh, but the instability that's in the spine. Dodd's had his opportunities to get fit.
What's that word? Instability. Fuck, we come up with some word for some dribblers.
No, but it makes sense, doesn't it? Like, Dodd's there. Yeah. He's on a huge paycheck. He's had opportunities to play. And instead of going with a Dodd, they've gone for Jai Gray, who's, in all respect to Jai Gray, defending in the front line is probably not the greatest place for a guy with a small body like that, who's usually a fullback. So, you'd think if Dodd was sort of looked at as a prospect there to sort of lead them into the middle part of the year, he would have sort of got some opportunities by now. The unlucky thing, or the shit thing for South again, is obviously the Latrell coming up with that ill-disciplined tackle, which is probably going to sit him out for a couple of weeks again.
Yeah, so Jai Gray will find himself back there. Lewis Dodd would nearly have to be picked this weekend.
Yeah, we'll see how much Wayne likes him this week. The answer to your question. Imagine, that's in all seriousness, imagine if he doesn't get picked again.
Oh, that means he might as well jump on the plane back to England.
Come back, bro. Mate, he was a super player over here. We spoke we spoke about Dodd in detail before the season started, and I spoke about how I'd run into him a few times at the shopping centre and seemed like a really good lad. He was a super player over in England. It's obviously a big move for him, but someone like him who's coming over from a different competition, who's probably hasn't really sort of obviously stamped his authority yet. He needs to be playing consistent footy. So if they're going to have him in there, you need to put him in there for a few weeks. But are they going to take that risk? Who knows?
Well, our first game Saturday afternoon was the Cowboys 50 over the Titans 18.
Wow.
Titans were in the lead again, 18 up by 16 points, I think it was. The Warriors just the Cowboys clawed it back and then ran on with it. Similar to what happened last week against the Raiders for the Titans. I watched this game closely because I went up and watched Titans train last week. Caught up with the great Paul Stevens for a coffee just to talk about my role there in the pathway stuff. And while I was there, I watched the Titans train. They train really well. But a big concern for me coming out of this game, and I actually messaged Steve on the night, their right edge defence were actually retreating on their line. They were going up and then they'd retreat. And I know the way the Cowboys were playing, Jackson Purdue, Drinkwater, Cliff and that, and they put pressure on the outside because how fast they come at you once the ball gets sort of out from away the middle. When it gets to the edges, the ball comes at you quick. So you have to make decisions fast. But if you're making decisions backpedaling, you're in for a long afternoon, especially against a team like the Cowboys because they score a lot of their tries on the edges. And you need to go up and you need to actually make a decision, not go up and actually give them a retreating line because that's what they want because a lot of the Cowboys tries finish right in the try line or just before the winger because they make him retreat, but you have to do something different. So for teams playing against the Cowboys, if you want to go up and defend and retreat, they'll make you. They just will get skinny on the outside because they're too fast. You need to go up and make a decision and try and shut them down.
We spoke about too fast. Robert Darby, Purdue. I hope I said that right. I love him as a player.
Oh, he's unbelievable. For a half playing the centres, they're saying he's a better half, which we probably won't see with the way Drinkwater and the way Dearden and Clifford are combining together and the importance of a big kicking game from Clifford. But Jackson Purdue, he's been unbelievable. He's been a shining light for the Cowboys. And the Cowboys, they're sitting 6. We spoke about the Cowboys only 6 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago even. They hadn't even registered a win. And now all of a sudden they're sitting 6 on the ladder. So well done to Toddy Payton and the Cowboys.
Yeah, Toddy, obviously, Robson spoke about, I think it was a Matty Johns show. I don't watch it much, Matty's show, but it popped up one night when I was sitting at home and I heard Robson and Drinkwater on the lounge talking about how connected the group was. And that was that period when they were sort of 3 or 4 losses to start the year. But they looked like they really knew where they were going. And they were talking positive about putting their defence and attack together for 80 minutes, that they're doing one thing well one week and not the other. And they've found their groove. They're back to where I'd say where they imagined they'd be, or probably where I imagined them to be, because on paper, they've got a great squad. Clifford's obviously the big one for them, and he's found some confidence. He's playing really well. He's a confidence player, Clifford, and when he's playing well, he's a handful. And Purdue, as I said, I love Purdue as a player. It's interesting you're talking about that he's usually a half. He must be a running half because he's very strong. He's a super strong runner and got great instincts. But yeah, Dearden was great, and they're a top 8 side, Cowboys, if they keep building how they are, for sure.
Yeah, they've turned the corner massively, and a lot of that's got to go back to Todd Payton. There was pressure put on him a few weeks ago about, obviously, like anything, when we speak about the result being results driven, the competition being results driven. If your team's not winning, the pressure starts coming on. But he spoke about it, that he's got the group and that they'll turn it around. And like all good teams and coaches, they have. There's concerns, obviously, with the Titans. There's talk Kieran Foran may be back this weekend. But they're just missing. They're missing a lot of punch. They're missing a lot of strike. Keanu Kinney, they're missing him, even though he's a young kid. I feel they're missing him at the back. Just he's a live wire. But yeah, I just don't. It's a big question mark. It's one of those things where you don't sort of stick the knife in too much, because I'm around the group. Well, not around the senior group, but I do some work there. Their junior pathers. I'm there tonight. But yeah, you sort of sit and wonder where it's going to come from, because there's obviously some big names in the team, but also there's an aging roster too, I believe. They're just not getting the jump where they find some rhythm and they play good patches, and when they play in good patches, they can put on 18 points. There's not a concern of scoring points, but it's just their D.
It's a worry for them too, obviously, to be out with such good starts, two weeks in a row, obviously Canberra and then this weekend's game, to be up by 16 points and blow both leads. It's sort of how you lose sometimes. It can really kick your confidence down a notch. So, yeah, like you said, it's the defence. If you don't apply pressure with your defence, as we know, everything capitulates off the back of that. You know, you attack, you struggle to find any momentum with the ball. Your halves are playing off the back foot, and as you said, that defence that's so passive on that right edge is a real worry. So it's not good. Titans. I had higher hopes for the Titans to start the year.
Yeah.
So as you said, hopefully Kieran's their great white hope, and he can come back and give him some confidence. You know, I know he's a bit older now, but we saw what Mitch Moses did for Parramatta. So sometimes all it takes is that one guy that they see in the sheds with a bit of presence, and hopefully for the Titans' sake, that's Kieran.
We don't put our Queensland hats on too much, but I want you to put your Queensland hat on at the moment. And who would you pick, Dearden or Munster? Or where does Dearden find his way into the Queensland team?
No, I'm picking Munster.
Yeah,
I'm picking Munster. I'd actually put Dearden as 14 if I was going with Munster, because Dearden could easily play that lock role, that running sort of role that they've traditionally done.
The way he's playing, he's found some form, and it's not just with his passing game; it's his running game. He looked like he's predictable for a little bit, but now he's unpredictable because he's got the pass. He's starting to find his groove, which is a good sign for the Cowboys, and that's probably shown in their performances. Why they're getting wins on the back of Tommy Dearden playing his best football.
That pass on the weekend was beautiful, wasn't it?
Over the top.
Developed he's sort of a real short side player, wasn't he, to start with? And then that runner, that show and go, that real short side, big fours. But I feel like he's starting to open his game up a bit more. Like the vision, that pass was a perfect example of that, to sort of expanding his game and bringing his centres a bit more involved. His growth's been crazy. What impressive.
I like about that pass, it wasn't on his left side, predominant left side. It was on the right side of the field. So it shows that he's popping up both sides of the field. Our next game on Saturday night was the Sea Eagles 28 over the Penrith Panthers 10. And we spoke about last week, and were the Panthers back? We both agreed that we thought they were. But well done to Manly. They held them out. Penrith had plenty of opportunities, but they just had too many unforced errors again. And Manly, their big gun stepped up. I thought Cherry Evans, after a sort of low couple of weeks after all the news, not saying it affected him, but I thought he had some not so great performances. But on the weekend, he was in everything. Big Ola Kawatu was unreal. Ruben Garrick's been a shining light for him. He's been really good. They find themselves sitting back in the top 8, the Manly Sea Eagles. I want to ask again, is Panthers season done?
I was expecting more from Penrith this week. As we just said, they looked a bit flat, but I don't know if it was because Manly's energy was just better, and they were sort of obviously had a lot more possession early. But yeah, it's hard to pinpoint with Penrith. I don't know, but I'm not going to write them off yet. I'm not going to write them off. Obviously, with the players they are, you can't knock a champion. And I feel I'll get egg in my face if I do, but I know these next 5 weeks. These next 5 weeks is going to be is going to be crucial, obviously. And I honestly thought this game was their opportunity to pounce. Manly sort of been a side that's probably struggled to play for 80 minutes consistently, and have gone in and out of games. I thought Penrith would really pounce, but for me, Olakau'atu was unbelievable this game. I thought he had his hand. It wasn't specifically just him, but his influence on that right edge. He played that nice little short ball out the back to Turbo for Talau's first try, the second try after Garrick's, and he had the short ball for Garrick on that first
Garrick,
try.
yeah.
And then even late in the game when little fullback Tommy went through, it was off a nice little sort of set piece, but it's all off Olakau'atu's presence there, and it's becoming a common thing. He must be a great player to play with for Cherry, just to have that ability to be able to use him as a decoy, use him as an extra ball player, or just give him early ball out of yardies to run over, a smaller half. So I feel like that right edge for them is going to be lethal, especially when Turbo's back consistently. He obviously made a big impact, and it just shows once again, Toddy, Turbo's influence. When he's back, they win. They win more than
that's
they lose.
Right.
But yeah, Manly were great. Obviously that another 10 in the bin this game, 3-10 in the bins. The Sorensen one was a joke. That was an absolute joke. Siwa Takiaho's one after the play as well was hard to get your head around, and then Cherry's one obviously was the potential penalty try. That was understandable, but yeah, to have 3-10 in the bins in one game, it's a joke. The Sorensen one off the kick-off was a joke. I wouldn't even call it a shoulder charge.
No, you can't wrap. Like, there's two bodies of blokes on the outside here. You can't wrap his arms around it. We spoke about it at the start there. We don't want to harp too much on it because it is becoming a joke. But I want to sort of speak about the Turbo thing again. It was good to see him back in the team. It shows the importance of just the influence he has in the team, because I thought he was in second gear. But he done what he needed to do. He was butted and bruised after the game, broken nose by the look of it. But it's good to see him back, and hopefully he can stay on the field. And obviously we want to see him in the Blues team. But just for Manly, I think when he's in their team and they're firing all cylinders, Manly are a top 8 team, and they'll contest against the bigger teams. When he's out, I don't see much hope for Manly.
That is the crystal ball, my friend.
Will the crystal ball against the ropes, against the crystal ball.
Will he stay on the field? I know. I agree with you. That's the top 6 side if he plays. If he doesn't, but he must have. He's done something to someone, Turbo. He gets touched with the unlucky stick on the football field as far as injuries. Like you just
said. Like me and you throughout our career. Throughout our career.
Ours was in nightclubs, but on the field, I'll tell you what, he just he can walk off the field first game back as a blinder, his face is bashed up again. But mate, what a player.
Our first game Sunday afternoon at my home ground, old home ground, GIO Stadium. Raiders 40 over the Dolphins 28. 28-10 at halftime. The Dolphins are winning. Raiders victory 40-28. I just want to run you through something. So the 49th minute, the 60th, the 65th, the 71st, the 78th, Raiders lay on tries. The last try for the Dolphins was the Jake Averillo in the 39th minute. So going into half-time, the Dolphins would have been on their sails, ready to take home the win. But whatever Ricky said at half-time in the sheds stuck with the Raiders. And their back rowers again, Hudson Young, Matty Nicholson, their front rowers laying a platform. But their outside backs of Savalio, Tamale, Ko Weeks, Jamal Fogarty again. I want to touch on the Fogarty situation at the end of this too. But the Dolphins' performance in the first half was some of their best football I've seen them play this year. They just didn't come out of the sheds in the second half.
Farnworth, Nikorima, Hammer, outstanding early. I thought Nikorima the last couple of weeks has been playing super footy.
He's been so good.
He's sort of breaking the game up for them. They've obviously not going into it again, but obviously first few rounds, they played that very predictable role. sort of made it hard for Nikorima to get involved. But the last few weeks, he's been the difference, coming up with lots of just tricky plays, like ad-lib plays, and then really composed footy. So, yeah, I thought Dolphins early was super impressive. As I said, I love their outside backs. It was both for me, for those sides that are sort of not valued as the top 2, top 3 sides, but for two sides with potential to really have a good crack this year. I think they got the best outside backs and back rows that haven't got probably that aren't spoken about as much. They're starting to get a bit more respect now, which they deserve. But Tomoko, Savage, Chris, Farnworth, Avarillo, as you said, Hudson Young, mate, they're as good as on form. They're as good as anyone else in the comp. And I love the style that they play. They're big, they're strong. Their outside backs are good in the air. They're good in yardage. One-on-one, they beat defenders. Tomoko, I love him as a player. I've talked about him for the last couple of years. Every time we've called the games, I love him as a player. And it was a super game of footy. You spoke about being the game of the round. I think it was. And both sides, it was there for the taking. But I think the difference as well outside of that is the Canberra middle. Hoskins, Tapine.
Well, they don't go away.
It's the offloads, Toddy. It's the late offloads that, especially Tapine, the skipper, has the ability to do. He breaks the game open.
Well, the thing for me with the Raiders is that they don't go away. They stay in it. If you look at their bench, I like their bench is Owen Paddy, Zach Hoskins, Josh Papali, Addy Mariota. They all find their front when their starting pack goes off, when their bench comes on, they add the same punch. Obviously, probably not as much quality out of two of them, but they add a similar punch. They know their role. They go out there, do some work, let Tarpon in that, get their rest, and then get them straight back out there. I think Ricky's got a really good balance down there from young and old. Obviously, Jamal in the halves with Ethan. They've got a great balance because one's a runner, one's an organiser. KO Weeks is finding some form. But well done to the Raiders, sitting third on the ladder. Got Melbourne Storm this weekend at Magic Round, I think will be the game of the round for Magic Round, which I'll be calling Sunday afternoon here at Magic Round. But I just want to touch on the Jamal situation again. And I spoke about it last week, and I wasn't hard on the young kid that's waiting in the wings, but I was just talking about the importance of what a steady half does and what it would do to the team. But I spoke about more so the Raiders doing whatever possible is to get Jamal to sign, to offer him that 2-year deal, to keep him there because they've got a good thing going. And he's in his sweet spot of his career, but also they're in their bubble of when I think they can win a competition. They showed glimpses the last few years. This year they're sitting consistently at the top of the ladder and looking like they'll play finals football and at a pinch could win a competition. But what they've got over the next few years that I think what Jamal can see and what every Raiders fan can see is that they've got potential to win a competition. And when I said they'll go backwards if they lose Jamal, and I still believe they'll go backwards, will they lose their premiership window? Maybe not. But I think with Jamal in their team, that they're more of a threat next year than they are with the young kid coming in. But now the Raiders offer him a 2-year deal, Manly trump him with a 3-year deal. It sort of gets pushed back to the player. And I don't know Jamal too well, but I know money comes and goes, but premierships don't. Listening to the great Nathan Cleary talk about premierships, and that's what we all strive for. You sort of now you lean. I went hard at the Raiders to do what was possible to get him to stay. Now it's back to the player, and I think it's for me. I'd like to, obviously, because I love the Raiders. I'd like to see Jamal put a year on the line and stay there because there's that window from the potential to win competition. I know Manly's a great team, but I don't believe Manly's in a better position than the Raiders to win a competition over the next 3 years.
I totally agree with you. And I saw Sticky come out probably playing a bit of cat and mouse as far as the negotiations and said, I hope they look after you in your third year and they don't throw you out to the... He said something like, I hope they look after you in your third year. And they don't throw you out as an older guy or something like that. It was a little bit of a jab. If you got the quote there, Gabe, from Sticky,
Sticky's had a few jabs about his manager saying that he was sick, and then seen him dancing around at the ground the next day. Yeah. I guess that's the games Ricky plays, because he does like Jamal. He got teary in Darwin the other week when he spoke about him. But I'd love to see this issue not put to bed, because it's not my issue for me to make a decision. But I'd love for Jamal to stay at Canberra. I'd love Canberra to keep Jamal, because it gives him that chance. Like, I want to see him win a grand final. They fell short a few years ago against the Roosters, against your boys. But, yeah, for me, I'd like to see the Raiders keep Jamal. But, yeah, it's a long time in rugby league. And who am I to talk about money comes and goes when I'm not there waiting for it? But it'd be good to see it happen.
You're a great person to talk about it, Toddy. You're a local kid up there. You played at Canberra. You're passionate about the club. You know the potential for Canberra where they're at. I totally agree with what you're saying. I think for Fogarty, he's a Canberra. He's not from Canberra, is he? But he's
a Gold Coast boy.
Gold Coast guy, but his club's Canberra now. He's got a good footprint on that club. He's come through the good times and the bad times with them. That team suits him. I feel like Sticky understands how to play. He understands the style that he plays, and he gets everyone else around them. Especially now, they've sort of found their groove of even last year. They play a good style of footy that suits Fogarty. So for me, my advice would be to stay there, even if it was for a little bit less. As you said, if he's worried about money, there'll be plenty of reward by sticking solid. And
I think a bit of the reward at Canberra is like coaching, and bringing success is one, and then obviously coaching after. But who knows? Who knows? But all we know is the Raiders are tracking well to be playing finals football this year. Our last game of the round was the return of Lockie Galvin. West Tigers 20 over the Cronulla Sharks 18. Golden Point, Adam Dewey, step up of the man, knocks it over from 30 out, wind in his face. But this was a game of sort of up and downs, not up and down performances, but it was up and downs in the scores. Both teams played some really good football. Tigers, I said that I thought Tigers would get lapped by the Sharks. So I've got a bit of egg in my face like you just spoke about. But well done to the Tigers. You spoke about Lockie Galvin. Some of his touches on the weekend were really good. It was good to see the young kid back. He spoke really well after the game. Nicho Hynes had some great touches on the weekend. But I just want to talk about the 50-metre field goal. He hits the upright, and then the next opportunity he gets it from 25 out and zings it across the line to Trindle.
Yeah,
like it happened a few times. Like were they? I don't know if teams were worried about having the pressure to take it on, but they sort of threw it to the other man to give him the opportunity to take it.
Well, everyone had a crack, didn't they? It was literally Trindle, Dewey, Nicho. I found that strange, that decision not to go for the second one. Whether he's got a fear of the 7 tackles, which every kicker gets at different points. You're worried about if it misses that you're going to put your team under pressure, but didn't seem to be the case for the first opportunity. So, yeah, I just love the Tigers' effort in this game. I just love the atmosphere that was coming through the screen at Leichhardt. They're finally doing their fans proud there, aren't they? Like, it's good to watch. Like, I feel like the Tigers, for all the criticisms Benji's copying, well, not from internal, a bit around this Galvin situation and can he coach, can't he coach? Well, I'll tell you what, he's got a bunch of young boys playing for him. That's one thing that he's doing really well, and I think it's hats off to Benji. He's done a really good job with that group. He's definitely, from a spectator point of view and people like us that are analysing and looking for strengths and weaknesses, I see a massive shift in the Tigers. Obviously, the talent pool that they've got there with Jerome and Galvin and Terrell May, these type of guys, Taruva has made a big difference. But you go to those 2 try-saving tries, Naden in the corner on, who was that one on? Naden on, I've got it for you, where is it? Was it Naden on Stone Street, and the Stafford Tower one on Atkinson. late in the game. That was a huge tackle. Stafford Toa's tackle on Atkinson was huge. Like that was game over there if he scores. He had a huge area. It was a 2-on-2 with like 15 meters, which is a super tough tackle for a center, and he pulled it off. So I thought those efforts are in the past. The Tigers of the past, they just leak in tries there. They're passive.
Yeah.
They don't come up with ways to solve it. I thought the big effort as well was the field goal, where there's about 10 of them just sprinting off the line. Obviously, it's a do or die situation of a game, but there's fire there. There's heart in the way that they're playing, and it's not just this week. They've been doing it for the whole season. So good to watch. But once again, also some sin bins ruined the occasion, Toddy.
Yeah, it did ruin the occasion. You spoke about the Tigers of what gone on the last few weeks. Obviously, Lockie Galvin misses last week. They lose against the Parramatta team. They come out and beat the Sharks this weekend. Listen to Lockie speak about that he just wants to play well for the group. That's his role now, just to play his best football, and he owes that to the group. I think if the Tigers, they can continue to muster up wings, they can look on this period. I know it's going to come up. There'll be an elephant in the dressing room for a little bit because they're wondering where Lockie's going to go. But there won't be as much noise about it when he decides where he's going as it has in this previous announcement that he was leaving the club. I think they're all over that now. It's about the group now, but the group looked fine on the weekend to go out and beat Cronulla. It shows that they've got a good group and they can sort of put the rest behind them. I think if they can continue to build wins, they'll look on this period through the last few weeks, and if they can play finals footy at the end of the year, which it's their main goal, and I'm sure they'll have a goal of winning a competition. But they'll look at this moment in time and go, well, that's what galvanised this group. It shows that we can get through anything and that the game's just bigger than one player. And now that one player's back in the team, they welcome him back, which it showed on the weekend. His performance was really good. And if they can get that week in, week out, the Tigers are a way better team. So I'm happy. Like you always say, Tigers are everyone's second best team, second favourite team, and we just want to see him play finals football. And while the other week was a bit of a ugly situation, it's good to see him get out of it and get a win on the weekend against the Cronulla team.
Yeah, it was impressive from Galvin too. Like I thought that early touch when he sort of broke through and popped a little offload was a sign of where his head's at and what a sort of talent he is. Like a guy that sort of struggles with dealing with pressure, or a guy that takes on all this media attention in a negative way, you'd see it early in his actions. But straight away from the start, he was bouncing from both sides of the field. It's like water off a duck's back for him. So that's gonna keep him in good stead, isn't it, for his whole career? And this won't be his first hurdle. He's gonna have plenty of shit coming his way, but yeah, he just keeps impressing. And love watching the Tigers play. What are they on the ladder at the moment, Toddy or Gabe? Where are they at the moment?
Ninth. And they've got this weekend at Magic Round, they have the Dragons.
They'll get the Dragons this week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, that's a wrap up of our games from the weekend. Round 8 done and dusted. We've spoken about some poor performance, some really good performance, some individual performances, but that every week it keeps happening, and we speak about the penalties, which hampered our round, hampered our today's round 8 wrap-up, because that's all Mitch wanted to speak about. I had my negative head on because I didn't get up and train this morning. I set my alarm for 4:30.
Very tired. You look very fatigued. I can see. I read your eyes, my friend. You look very... You need to go back to bed.
I'm not going back to bed because I'm going to work. And next time you'll be reading your eyes, you'll have 2 black eyes, because I'll give you a boof, boof, boof. Show us you rolled in the ropes. You been boxing?
Yeah. No, I got bashed the other night. I went and trained a couple of days ago, and he went hard on me. Real hard.
So you haven't been back?
No, I'm going back.
Standard week, cat.
Nah, I'm walking straight back into it. No, I'll be back there tomorrow. Going up to Barcelona tomorrow, pick my friend up. My good mate Mickey, he's coming back for the week.
Nice. That'll be good for you.
Going to pick him up. And, mate, just in the groove. Going to start doing a bit of stuff at Catalans, I think, a couple of days. But, mate, just taking it easy, brother. Missing you, to be honest.
Yeah, I'll be missing you. And like all good things, I I'll be back on the line with you talking very soon because with our new time slot will be very different. And special mention to our footy nerds. Get your questions in for this week. We love you. Love sending them in. Like we say, any topic counts. But yeah, thank you again. It's been great talking to you or talking to us, each other, for you guys. I hope you enjoyed your weekend of footy. Magic round coming up, round 9. Hope you all get there. Be safe, and we'll see you on Thursday.